Welcome to Countdown to Classic, a podcast that educates, informs, and gossips about World of Warcraft Classic. Every Monday and Wednesday we discuss the news, hot button issues, and content of the highly anticipated World of Warcraft Classic. I'm your host, Josh Corbett, and I am an absolute nut for the vanilla days, the classical era, or perhaps even the Baroque period of World of Warcraft. I also happen to be somewhat of a podcast veteran, so I figured, why not combine my two passions like a mad scientist and bring you this show? However, you might be asking, why the hell should I listen to this guy with the funny accent about World of Warcraft? Well, I'm glad you asked, because I think you'll like the answer. It's not necessarily me that you'll actually be listening to. It's you. Huh? You say? Well, I am far from the go-to authority on all things World of Warcraft, but guess who is? You, the listeners and fans and people who don't die to mobs in Searing Gorge like me. And that's why this podcast is about you and what you're talking about throughout the week online, as much as it is about this amazing game that we've all come to know and love. I'm just a fanboy of World of Warcraft and a mouthpiece for the news and conversations that we're all taking part in online. I try to stay as neutral as possible and present both sides of all of the discussions presented in this show. But just before we get to the good stuff, everyone, please do bear with me for just a little bit of housekeeping. I just want to let you know that you can find all things Countdown to Classic online at countdowntoclassic.com. More importantly, please subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcast from. And see that little button, subscribe, right there. Hit it, and then you'll get all the notifications when I bring out a new episode. Also, like, follow, or subscribe to the show on social media. You can find the show on Instagram and Facebook at Countdown to Classic, on Twitter at Count2Classic with the number 2, and on the show's YouTube channel at Countdown to Classic. One small favor I would ask is that if you're currently listening to the show on YouTube right now and you are liking what you're hearing, then please do click on the download or stream links on the website as well, as I primarily lean on those figures as a look into how the show is growing. Now, as Countdown to Classic is a show about you, yes, you, the players, this is an interactive experience, and I absolutely want to hear your feedback or input on the show. You can drop me a line on all socials or email feedback at countdowntoclassic.com. If you've listened to previous episodes of Countdown to Classic, you will have noticed somewhat of an interesting trend. When you write to me with something for the show, it usually gets read out. So if you want to have your 15 seconds of wow fame, then hit me up with a memory lane story, a fun request like last week's girlfriend email, or just ask for a shout out. I'm totally into shout outs, everyone. So if you want a shout out, write into the show, let me know where you're listening from, and it'll probably happen. Speaking of being into things, I'm totally into podcasting as well, everyone. So if you love the show and can't get enough of me, and you love comedy and love movies, then please do head to my other podcast as well, The Cinephiles at cinephiles.com. That's SINNERFILES. It's not just me. There are 2 other jokers that I do it with, and trust me on this one, everyone. We are hilarious, insightful, and we clearly kind of hate each other. It's a popular show here in Australia, so please do check it out. I just did an hour on Brad Pitt on the show, and it is absolutely hilarious. I couldn't recommend that episode more, so please do just go on over there and have a look-see. Now, I'll have more show news and shout-outs towards the tail end of the show, so please do stick around for that. But with all of that done, it's about time I get on with the real show and hit you up with some Forum and Fauna. Every Monday, Countdown to Classic brings you 3 of the most popular threads from the WoW Classic official forums, the WoW Classic subreddit, or various other WoW forums online that have gotten hot in the last week. The first topic for this week's forum and Fauna is a thread from the WoW Classic official forums titled DKP or Dragon Kill Points. And this was posted by user Zalvu, who said the following. Back when raid leaders and guild leaders had to decide who gets what in a group of 40 players, the way they would easily settle it was called DKP. It was for my guilds at least. Depending on the boss or the number of bosses you helped with in a raid, it would give you a specific amount of DKP per kill. Killed an Ixia that week, 15 DKP. Killed 3 bosses in MC that week, 10 DKP per boss, and so on. It might have been called something else for a few other people. Does anyone else remember having to do this back then? Now that post in and of itself didn't really raise anything much at all, but the thread heated up a lot from there, and the first reply spawned quite the argument amongst players. That reply post from user Cerberus read, there were many other systems existing as well, including Suicide Kings and Loot Council. Although I'm not sure if they existed back in vanilla, I only saw them in BC. The one raiding guild I was a part of in vanilla also used DKP. I think it was the most popular loot distribution system. It wasn't a bad system, but it did have its flaws, like people passing on small upgrades resulting in disenchanted gear because they were holding out for a set piece that was a larger upgrade. Loot Council always seemed better to me, but it requires complete faith in your leaders. Now, this post presents our opening discussion point here on this week's Countdown to Classic. The DKP system versus the Loot Council system, or any other loot distribution method for that matter. And what you plan on using this second go round in World of Warcraft Classic when it releases. Now, the first argument would be that, yes, Josh, of course I only plan on being involved with a guild that uses DKP. Anything else would be insanity. Or, the other side of the coin is that, DKP wasn't all it was cracked up to be, and I found better options in the years since vanilla, and I'll be forming or joining a guild that uses these alternative systems. So, what we do here on Countdown to Classic, if this is your first time with us, thank you for stopping along, is to go into bat for both sides of the coin, presenting the pros and cons of both arguments that you've just heard. And we'll have you, the listener, chew on both of these arguments as food for thought from everything that arises. Just before I get into the argument though, just in case anyone hasn't heard of or isn't overly familiar with the DKP or Loot Council system, because perhaps like me, you didn't do a whole lot of raiding back in vanilla, here are the WoW Wiki short descriptions of these two terms. Now, Dragon Kill Points, usually abbreviated with the acronym DKP, designates a kind of currency which is earned by participating in endgame raids and spent by acquiring loot from endgame bosses. The term DKP is also frequently used to designate a raid-level loot system in general. The most popular systems for endgame loot distribution are point-based, just like DKP systems. The very first endgame loot distribution system was developed in EverQuest by the guild Afterlife in 1999 and named for the original 2 EverQuest end bosses, both of whom were dragons. But there were also variations of the DKP system as well, as one forum user explained very nicely for us, and that user was Thepi Romos on the WoW Classic official forums, who says the following. There were so many variations to DKP systems. Some were better, some were worse. Open bid, silent bid, fixed price, decay, forced buys, class restriction on items that you can bid on, etc. Depending on how it's run, it's the best system for casual to mid-tier guilds. Even if you don't get anything in a run, you still feel you gained something in that you gained DKP, and the people that got loot lost DKP. Obviously, Loot Council is the best system for hardcore guilds pushing progression. So, on that term loot council that we've now heard a couple of times. What is a loot council for you newbies? A loot council is a relatively simple way to distribute loot. Whenever an item is involved in the loot system, a group of individuals decide who gets the item. Ideally, this group of individuals takes into consideration several different factors, ranging from attendance, performance, size of upgrade, and attitude. In some cases, often called corrupt loot councils, council members may make decisions based on friendships or personal bias. Ooh. It's worth noting that loot council systems are the most popular method of loot distribution in world-class raiding guilds. Anyway, now that we've got all the definitions out there and everyone is quite clear on what it is that we're actually going to be talking about, let's get into the arguments that were raised for both sides. Now, the first argument I bring you from the forums is pro-DKP. Now, this is from user Curve, Kervv, who begrudgingly resigns themselves to DKP being used predominantly in Classic with this post. In retail WoW, DKP seems archaic. Most guilds use a simple loot council. However, with 40 raiders and however many bench spots and the higher turnover of raiders due to burnout farming mats, a loot council probably wouldn't be feasible in Classic. There are more variables per person and twice as many people per raid. In all honesty, DKP is probably going to be the gold standard for guilds once Classic releases. It's not perfect, but it's the closest thing that we can get since it determines your ability to get gear based off of the commitment you provide to the guild through attendance, performance, and waiting for the right gear you really want. Now that post suggests that, love it or hate it, DKP is the best of numerous imperfect choices. Nothing that has been devised by players over the years is going to satisfy everyone. There's always a way to disenfranchise certain players when they don't receive amazing loot that they feel should be awarded fair and square. So, I ask you listeners, is DKP archaic? Is it only fair for now because we haven't devised anything better? This post suggests that DKP works because it's applicable to your contribution to that guild over time. The fluctuating rosters issue must also be taken into account, and the thought of rewarding someone new via the loot council system and then have them disappear the next day obviously doesn't sit well with a lot of people as a possible option. However, I would suggest that the same could be said for the DKP system. Obviously, people will come and go on a very regular basis, particularly if World of Warcraft Classic attracts the kind of numbers that we're sort of expecting it will. We all got it back in vanilla in the golden era. The turnover was crazy. I remember seeing in my guild new people every week. Hey, who are you? Haven't seen you before. That's great. Welcome on board. I mean, that's the whole point, is to recruit new people. It's fantastic. However, people also left on a highly regular basis. So this revolving door mentality behind guilds did create somewhat of an issue when it came time for high-end content. Now, people would obviously get taken through raids on a regular basis, relying on their teammates to get to their goals and get to their loot. But how would guilds choose to reward these players? Who do you reward? What system do you put into effect? And also, if you then start rewarding someone, how are you to essentially be comforted by the fact that they're still going to be there tomorrow? Well, I guess there's no guarantees in World of Warcraft, but we had to do something, one of these several imperfect systems that would satisfy us. Now, the next post that we move on to is Pro Loot Council. This comes from user Homunculus, who says this: you can say Loot Council is biased and bullshit, and I've been on the short end of the stick with Loot Council in vanilla. However, DKP is worse. Hardcore top-end raiding guilds always end up with Loot Council because DKP has people passing on huge upgrades so that they can bid all their points on Thunder Fury or Eye of Sulfuras. It's not practical and is abused. The point they raised there are obviously the negatives of DKP. It's not all grassy fields and sunshine with the DKP system. There is a dark side, and that is this point that is frequently raised by people who have obviously spent a lot of time with the DKP system, or who have now neglected the DKP system in favor of loot council because of this kind of quote-unquote abuse. The hoarding of points collected by players over time and passing over what may be seen to be a clear and cut upgrade. That's the major knock here. And a lot of people talk about this on the forums when suggesting that, well, DKP is far from perfect. Players are committing to regular raids and they're never spending a point noticeably, even on gear that would perhaps warrant their points being spent. Now, the vast majority of examples that I came across online were people citing relatively minor upgrades being passed on. Not quite side grades, still quite clearly an upgrade, but just not like a huge upgrade. And then throwing a bit of shade at players for not spending their DKP, even though it's still quite obviously a step up for them. Now, this infuriated those players because they felt that it shirked the system somewhat, in that when it came time for these amazing items to drop that everyone was really, really crossing their fingers for and holding out for, there were a few players within the raid that just had this absolute treasure trove of DKP points. They were sitting on the pot of gold this whole time, not spending a freaking point for a month, 2 months, 3 months, whatever it might have been, and then simply just going, oh, Thunder Fury dropped, thank you very much, I'll spend all my DKP points on that one, and none of you have any chance at it whatsoever except for me. This rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. However, I have a genuine question here. Like I've told you all on the show before, I was not much of a raider back in the vanilla days. And the more and more I do this show, I do come to realize that I'm actually not as much in the minority as I once thought. Now, don't get me wrong. Many of you listening right now, I'm sure, were either hardcore raiders, moderate raiders, or just at least dabbled in it. I didn't do much raiding at all back in the day. And I have a very limited amount of experience with the DKP system. In fact, virtually zero. I do remember people talking about it within guilds. I do remember seeing people blow up about it in guild chat. However, as your lovable dumb host, and I'm allowed one stupid question every podcast, I do pose this question to you listeners, and please do write into the show at feedback@countdowntoclassic.com if you have the answer. Now, how did people get through this content if they were neglecting upgrades on a very regular basis, hoarding these points for the amazing drop? Now, I guess the argument could be that, well, they already had pretty shit hot gear and they didn't need these very, very slim to minor upgrades to get through the content already. If that's the case, then so be it. But I do just find it odd that people were still ripping through high-end bosses and not upgrading their gear, or not being pushed to by certain guilds going, dude, I know we can already down the boss, but we want to down him even faster. Take the bloody gear. Anyway, just a side note that someone please write into the show and help me out there. My next point comes back to the pro DKP crowd, who says the following with user Whiskey. Loot council is terrible. Good luck getting a loot council that isn't full of corrupt sub 100 IQ people. Followed on by user Kickrocks with this one. DKP is the best system. You put in the time, you get loot. Show up once a week, it's going to take you months to get gear. Fair is fair. What if you were in a bowling league and only showed up once every month? Would that be fair to the other bowlers if you got a trophy and got credit for the work they all did while you came and went as you pleased? It boils down to respect for your roster. If people save up their DKP because they want something, what's wrong with that? They put in the time and effort. Why should someone that comes once in a while to the raids or is new be treated the same and have the ability to roll on that loot as someone that shows up all the time and puts in the effort? That's a very good point by that user, who basically raises the negatives of the loot council system. Now, sorry, the two users that I just cited there. The first one obviously being, you can't necessarily rule out the fact that loot councils might be run by either A, people who are quote unquote corrupt and have some rather nefarious means in mind when they're distributing this loot, or B, perhaps aren't as wise in distributing loot as you feel they should be, and items are getting sent to players that shouldn't really be sent their way because it's not as applicable to that class or to that style of play that they use. And I guess the third option is really that you're putting a lot of trust into people that you might not really know. A lot of us are in World of Warcraft for the fat loot. We play the game for this progression. We want upgrades. It's part and parcel of what the style of the game is all about. The striving for more, the quest for glory via stronger powers, which come by way of what you're wearing and what you're equipping. So, with that in mind, the whole loot distribution system is actually quite core to the game, obviously. Thus, why would we want to place such an important factor of the game in the hands of people that we don't really know? And it's something that's out of our control, and some people aren't comfortable with that. But what Kickrock's raised is that, unfortunately, loot councils tends to put people on the same level theoretically. Now, I know that loot councils will still take other subjective factors into account, like your attitude, how you went during a raid, things like that. But at the end of the day, it's still someone else's decision, and they could decide to give that loot to someone who is brand spanking new to the guild, and they're trying to basically beef them up a little bit. So, why should that new person be put on the same plateau as someone who has put in dozens or however many hours into raids? That's not fair in a lot of players' eyes. And the favoritism that could also start to creep in with loot councils. People feel that some leaders will just gravitate towards their friends. You don't know who they're speaking to in their off time. Maybe their best mate is the guy that they're always giving good gear to. Maybe that's the person that they're having coffee with every weekend. Maybe it's someone's trying to get lucky and they're clearly filtering good gear to another player just in a hope of getting a cute email as a thanks for the loot kind of thing. Who knows? But they also raise this point. With DKP, what's wrong with hoarding points? We just talked about that being a negative of the DKP system. However, the whole DKP system is based on the building of these points so that you can buy shit later on. So when I say buy, I mean obviously spend your DKP points through the guild on the loot. Now, why are we to chastise players for just storing what they've earned and then seeking to spend it how they want? That's like criticizing people for getting too rich in real life. How dare you sit on all that money, Bill Gates? Who do you think you are? Like, it's not quite how it works. We can't now necessarily develop a tall poppy syndrome and start trying to cut people down because they put in so much time and effort to build those points. They don't just apparate from nowhere. Those points that they're hoarding came from somewhere, and it was usually blood, sweat, and tears. So, those are some extra points about those. Do with those as you please. But we move back to the loot council system in favor of it with this post from Saravok, who says this. Guess which one works better? Hint. It's not the system where people see each other as competition, deliberately ignore upgrades to save for other items, or end up creating mafias to hoard points. Now, that's an interesting point that this user raises, and they're basically saying DKP creates more carnage as one has to keep their mind on the auction style / sort of bidding system that it creates. And collusion, unfortunately, can seep in with the DKP system. It begins with some classes working together to hoard points between themselves and then putting minimum bids on certain items. Hence the phrase, the mafia, the DKP mafia. Perhaps one player would whisper another, saying, hey bro, just bid the minimum on this one and I'll do the same. As I said, guys, I've got very little idea on how this worked in a practical nature. I'm going off of the theory and just what I've read on the forums this week. Now, the forums taught me this week, and for God's sakes, please angrily write to the show and go, Josh, you tool, you got it all wrong. That's not how it worked. But what I read was that collusion in DKP systems very much so was a thing at times, because multiple players of a certain class might sort of band together and figure out how they're going to get the gear that they want. And it was this collusion that rubbed people the wrong way, because, again, the whole point is to put everyone on the same playing field. And if the DKP system can be, well, worked in a certain way or gamed, then some people had issues with that. Please do write to me, guys, and tell me how wrong I might be getting this, but I'm just going off of what I've picked up through the week. Back to the pro-loot council argument, and user Luga says this: I'm sure a significant number of complaints about loot council are made by people who don't have the raid's best intentions at heart, like the council does, or only feels they were unfairly treated when they were in fact being treated equally to the rest of the group by not getting the loot, etc., etc. Take this for example. Jimmy the Grey Passing Warlock, who constantly fails mechanics and barely ever talks, got passed up for getting that awesome Warlock trinket, while Johnny, the raid leader's best friend, got it instead. Never mind that Johnny is orange passing in the same gear as Jimmy, it's clearly favoritism, even though it isn't. The logical bigger gain in raid DPS is giving it to Johnny. Now, the point that user raises is apparently there is a feeling that the kind of people that bitch about the loot council system are the people who are feeling like they got screwed by it, even though they are potentially the poor players who aren't putting in the right way during the raid. The argument is that loot council absolutely works. Just because you're not getting the gear, it doesn't mean it's based in favoritism. It's not because the guild leader is screwing the person that they gave the loot to. You could take a step back, reevaluate your own performance, your own attendance, your own attitude, and wonder if perhaps you're not getting that gear because it's not in the guild's best interest to reward you. So that was what a lot of people raised that I found through the forums, is that there is a certain class of person that bitches about loot council. Don't shit on it because it works when applied correctly. However, back to Pro DKP with user Ratsmats. All too often, Loot Council just assures that the GM and his buddies get the best gear first. With DKP, if the GM or one of his buddies spent DKP to purchase the T2 legs that just dropped off of Rag, then next week, when a Thunder Fury binding or the Eye of Rag drops, they won't have the DKP to purchase that drop. With Loot Council, they don't have to worry. They can quote-unquote Loot Council all of their tier gear or any item they desire to themselves and still be able to Loot Council themselves that Eye of Rag or Thunder Fury binding that just dropped. The point this user is bringing up is that the real collusion doesn't come from DKP. It comes from loot councils. Guild managers clearly give everything to their friends, and the system itself creates an environment where this can easily happen and isn't even necessarily frowned upon that much if users don't really realize what's going on behind closed doors. So the Loot Council, by this post sort of summary, is inherently corrupt. And even though we just heard that these are the kind of people that bitch about loot councils, just because you're not getting anything doesn't mean the system doesn't work, they're saying, well, no, it's based in experience, and don't say that I bitch about loot council just because I never get anything and that I'm apparently a shit player. I'm basing my observations of loot council off the fact that I fucking clearly saw the guild manager giving shit to his friends on a fucking regular basis, and I thought it was not fair. So people would say. Not me, because I wasn't in raids. Back to the pro-loot council argument for the final point of this topic. And this is a good one, guys. Listen up. User Profit says this. I feel like people's fears about loot councils are a bit off. My experience being an officer in a loot council guild was that the officers actually got less loot on average. Due to wanting to use loot to reward members or just not wanting it to seem like we are taking loot for ourselves. People who would call us corrupt normally were in a situation like this. An item drops. 3 to 7 people legitimately deserve it, but you have to make a call and X player gets the item. Y player legitimately deserved it also, but there was only one item. Y player remembers an officer typing out a smiley face in guild chat 3 months ago, and player X happens to be talking. Conspiracy confirmed. Actually, that situation isn't too common. In my experience, the players who don't bring consumables, don't notify about being late or absent, or AFK during trash, or just got 2 other items last week, are always the ones who don't understand why they didn't get the first Azure Mage Blade that dropped, and will shit-talk the officers for like 3 days in TeamSpeak. That was a really good measured response from someone who, as they say, was a guild officer in a loot council system. And I think that their point of view is something really worth taking note of. They say that the people who bitched about these made up conspiracies did so over nothing. You couldn't win as a guild officer back in the day. And it had its own trials and tribulations in trying to manage so many people and keep so many egos in check and people satisfied with what they were drawing as a reward from so much time spent in a game when your efforts are being governed by other people that you might not really know. And I don't doubt for 1 second that being a guild officer was an incredibly difficult job. I had nothing to do with that when I played World of Warcraft Vanilla. I couldn't have been less removed from the management or creation of a guild. I was a total guild whore. I jumped from guild to guild all the time. I was just like, hey guys, I'm here for the next month or 2. What's up? And I'd chat away and then it would dissolve because I wasn't a high-end content user that much. So it was very easy just to sort of chop and change and go, oh, whatever, a new group of people. Hey guys, what's going on? But the guilds that stuck together over a long period of time and took on high-end raid content, organizing and managing those people, I just shudder at what those guys would have gone through. And as this user says, nobody wins. Everybody bitches. So again, we're left with picking what some would say is the best of some pretty ordinary options. But you tell me what you think, everyone. Do you like DKP? Do you like loot councils? More importantly, what are you going to gravitate towards when WoW Classic comes out? Do you want to do the same thing that you did last time? Or do you want to mix things up and try the other system? Or are you going to devise the new system that finally takes us all away from this pain and cures everything in one fell swoop? I hope one of you does. Anyway, with that, we'll move on to the second topic of today's podcast, which again comes from the official WoW forums in a thread titled Toggleable Features. God, that's a shit word to say. Toggleable. Say that 10 times fast. Anyway, here we are, everyone, with our first really hairy topic of the week, and perhaps first one in a little while, with something that will have some people jumping up in arms. Josh, stop talking about this. Don't even talk about it. Then they'll crave for more changes. No changes. No changes. Settle down, everyone. Everyone, please, please, please. Let's talk about this maturely. Now, I'm just going off what the post was, and it heated up this week. And the post was this from user Amy. I would personally love to be able to turn on updated graphics and animations in the official Classic WoW servers. I don't see why such an option can't be made available. Your thoughts, fellow players? Now, obviously, the point they're raising is this, and I don't think it really requires much brain power to go through. Do we need, who is calling for, who is shooting down, the option of updated graphics and character models and shadows and things like that? All of that jazz wrapped up in one little package, or big package, if you will. Are we going to have, or do we even desire, the ability to flick that switch on and off? Do you want to be able to hit escape, go into your little options there, and just flick, I'll take my updated graphics, thank you very much, or, if they're on by default, just be able to go, I'll go back to the classic models and graphics, thank you very much, and just click that little switch. Now that all of you, your blood's pumping, some of you are upset, some of you are excited. Let's get into it, because I feel like we've seen this before. It's this sort of come in vogue in video games in recent years with all the remakes that we're getting now. And I'm not saying that WoW Classic's going to be a remake by any means, but we do get a lot of remakes in video games now. And one in particular that I loved, and I think that a great example, even though it's far from the only one that does it, is the Monkey Island remakes, where you just flick that switch and it seamlessly, in half a second, takes you between the old school graphics, which are very old school, and the remade graphics, which are beautiful and lustrous. And also games have the option where you can switch soundtracks even. A lot of my beloved RPGs recently remaking things. I think Final Fantasy X, the remaster, or maybe I'm thinking of something else, just had like soundtrack options where you can just flick between the old school music when the game first came out, or more of an updated orchestrated version, which some people might like having the option. So let's get into the meat of this one, guys. Strap yourselves in. The first post is in the pro toggle argument that says this, and it's from user Hushups. There's nothing odd about having a visual preference. A working toggle allows everyone to choose the visuals they prefer. Everyone wins. Now, short, sharp one to start off with there. And God, I walk into this subject with so much trepidation. And please don't hold the fact that I'm bringing this up against the podcast. We talk about everything here, people, even the most especially the most controversial topics. So just because I'm talking about it doesn't mean I'm an advocate for it. I'm just bringing you both sides of the argument so we can all maturely sit down and discuss it. Anyway, this first post brought up the following point. It's effectively it's saying give us the choice. Why can't we have the choice? Why are we stripping away options in this day and age in 2018 when we have the tech to deliver both options? Let's embrace this amazing world that we live in with video games that are just giving you a button to click, and I can now choose between, like I said, with Monkey Island, playing the effect, I think it was like 1991 or whenever the originals came out. I can play that old version, or I can play the new version in the click of a button. Why not give us the option if it's possible? If you don't like that, guess what? You don't have to turn the toggle on. Wow, there's a thought to wrap your head around. Everybody wins. There is literally something for everybody. So why not embrace it? Well, here's why. Because the anti-toggle crew pipes up with this one from user Taylonas. I think if such a toggle existed, it would take away from the classic experience to a considerable degree, let alone bring in a toxic community. The new animations versus the old are different styles, with different personalities following these styles. I have no problem with updated graphics, but it's the artwork of the animations that I have a problem with. As I mentioned before, they don't have the vanilla vibe with them. The original Warcraft touch and feeling. Most people that push for such much have never played the Warcraft games before WoW, let alone vanilla. Most started around Warlords of Draenor or Legion, so they wouldn't understand why it's so important. Leave Classic as Classic. In other words, no changes, please. The new animation artwork is more of a Disney-style approach as opposed to the old one. This style, being the new, is targeted towards a completely different personality set, the younger generation and the quote-unquote swag group of people, and both are pretty toxic. I'm just worried that Blizzard will make Classic less time-consuming as well, as far as leveling goes. That's one reason out of the many why I like Classic. You didn't gain 20 to 30 levels in less than an hour like you do in retail, but instead it takes weeks. This requires a lot of patience, and patience is something kids nor swag people have, and this alone keeps them out of the community, as with the old models as well. So no, I don't want a toggle. Very good counterpoint from the anti-toggle community. And they're basically saying through that post, the option to bring a toggle, even though it is just an option, by its very existence may attract the wrong crowd to World of Warcraft Classic. And it's the kind of crowd that will feel more open to checking Classic out. They'll feel like it's a bit of an invitation if they have this ability to turn WoW Classic into something that looks and perhaps feels like Legion. Now, the argument is that crowd already has an avenue to enjoy these updated graphics. And that avenue is called Legion. So, if we're going back to Classic and we're winding back the clock, why are we doing so with today's updated graphics? This is part of the reason, as this part of the community says, where we started to splinter, and the fork in the road was helped along by Blizzard updating graphic models, making them cuter, making them more Disney, and having younger people go, wow, look at the shining lights and the bright sparkly things in my face and all this stuff is happening and I want to play Warcraft. Those are the people that apparently we want to convince not to join us in Classic. You've got your own little thing, just leave Classic to us who like our stuffy old clunky models. We're quite happy with that. We don't need the Disney vibe. We like the old school pen and paper drawings, and please just keep to your own. However, the pro toggle argument fights back through user Mistwind, who adds this. Now, Mistwind was replying to a post, and I should just quickly read what that post was. It's a very quick one. It says, what if I want transmog? Should Blizzard add that just because I happen to want that? It's just graphics after all. And Mistwind replied with the following. You and others have brought up this argument to an even further extreme, suggesting that allied races, Argus, and indeed everything in Legion are graphics updates, and that anyone asking for a graphics toggle, therefore, must be requesting everything in Legion. Essentially an all-or-nothing argument. And that's where your logic completely falls apart. No. Those are not graphics updates. And no, when we ask for a graphics toggle to be added to the graphic options, we're not requesting everything in Legion. Graphics options dictate what you see on your screen only. They have absolutely no effect of any kind on what anyone else sees on their screen. Graphics options have existed in games for decades. Every MMO has graphics options. No MMO has ever been released without graphics options. Vanilla had lots of graphic options from day one. The toggle that those of us are seeking here would simply be to ask for a graphics option to swap in more modern graphics to replace the ugly 14-year-old ones. It would be client-side only and would have no effect on anyone else's gameplay. Transmog, Allied Races, Argus, Winged Elves, Sparkly Unicorns, Balance Changes, or anything else really from Legion are obviously not graphics options. Those other changes can't be implemented without affecting everyone in the game, and would have to be server-side, not client-side. Those other things couldn't be toggled on or off. Your logic doesn't work against what we're actually requesting, so you're trying to expand what we're requesting into something comically ridiculous. Basically, you're exercising the logic of a preschooler. Don't try to bend what we're requesting into something we're clearly not. Blizzard knows what a graphics toggle is. I understand there is one in StarCraft Remastered. You're not fooling anyone. The point by Mistwind there is, what the fuck do you care if I have my toggle on? It doesn't affect your experience, so why are you so up in arms about it? And the logic flows as such. If every player has the ability to turn on or off a graphics update, A, we won't know who's playing with one and without one. And B, even if you found out via chat, like, hey man, I'm playing with the updated graphics. Isn't this cool? How does it change your gameplay experience? I can't play with this person. Fuck that. I only play with people who are using the old models. If you're not using 14-year-old character models, I don't want to play with you. Fuck this. Nup. You've crossed the line, buddy. I mean, I do see where Mistwind is coming from. Why are people so up in arms? Is it just because you rely on the slippery slope argument in a way? And if you are relying on that argument, then it's a poor one to rely on, because the people who are asking for updated graphics aren't necessarily asking for anything else but updated graphics. They don't want Legion. They just want the game to look a little bit slicker. And quite frankly, what's wrong with that? In this day and age, why are those people getting hammered for simply saying, hey guys, it's 2018. Do you reckon we could get some 2018 graphics in a 2018 game? Well, here's the thing. The detractors from that say, well, if you then get the updated graphics, what from Legion are you going to ask for next? And, well, Mistwind's saying nothing. There is a camp of people who just want the graphics, and Blizzard's not going to succumb to an avalanche of changes just because they've done this one. It doesn't change the server. It just changes the client. So it doesn't affect everyone. Just affects me and my experience. And that is a fair point. However, anti-toggle jumps back into the equation with this one from Mogar. Here's the thing. Vanilla means vanilla. I don't see a point in trying to cater to the individual preference of 1 million players for 1 million different variables. That's why vanilla means vanilla needs to be the guiding principle. It's simple, it's effective, and it's what the legacy movement has been about for a decade. Point being, I don't believe Classic is about trying to combine current WoW with Classic WoW. That's a recipe for disaster. The two games need to be as different as possible. They need to look different, play different, appeal to different types of players, and offer very different experiences. That's how Classic is going to be the biggest success possible. If it's just a lesser polished version of current WoW, players won't last. If, instead, it concentrates on being its own thing and embracing its identity rather than sacrificing it, then it will excel. Very strong fight back there from the anti-toggle crowd. And the point that's coming up through that argument is, why the fuck did we just fight so hard? Again, not me. You guys did it all. I wasn't involved. Why did we fight so hard for Classic WoW if you're just going to jazz it up? We fought for a particular version of WoW. Why would Blizzard even consider giving us something so drastically different from what we fought for? That's not what we asked for. That's not why Blizz said, yes, we'll give you vanilla. That's effectively like Blizz saying, well, you asked for vanilla, so we're giving you Neapolitan, yay! And people just scratching their heads going, what? That's sort of looks like what I asked for, but why is it mixed in with all this other fucking ice cream? And here's the thing. Neapolitan ice cream sucks. That's just a pure fact. But perhaps the argument could be put into WoW Classic as well. If we get the Neapolitan ice cream of WoW Classic, is it destined to suck? And the great point here is, do we want any kind of admixture? And I think the quote from this post that's most interesting is, it would be it's a recipe for disaster to combine current WoW with classic WoW in any way. And that obviously boils down again to the changes versus no changes argument at its core, because the changes crowd is obviously saying, let's chuck everything in a blender and put out the best product. We need to take a little bit of this, a little bit of that from the old and the new, blend them together and create this Frankensteinian combination that's going to be fantastic that everyone loves. But this user is basically saying that's actually the recipe for disaster, because the experiences are different for a reason. Let's keep them different. If we're just going to blend everything together and create something that's not distinct from the other version of WoW, then why would we bother? If you have two games, one day, one night, then that's win-win for Blizzard, because they get both of the crowds satisfied and everybody's happy. However, if you have Legion and a jazzed up blended version of Classic, then really in effect, no one's happy, maybe except for the Legion crowd, and maybe not even them so much. I don't even know. But the point is, why bother? We asked for Classic, give us Classic. Back to the pro toggles argument. And I turn again to user Mistwind, who is so obviously insightful in that initial post, that they get back with another one and they say this: what looks good is a matter of opinion. It's one reason why games have graphics options, is that so players can find a setting that looks good for them and they stick with it. In your case, you obviously would not like the new graphics, so would not check the box to activate them. That would be your personal choice. My personal choice would be to check the box and use the updated graphics. Now, Mistwind then quoted another post which pointed out a particular article on the Battle.net site, which was a solution provided by Blizz officially about the updated models. Basically, some people were reporting back that the updated models were creating some performance issues in World of Warcraft for them, and that they wanted to have the option to go back to the older character models, and Blizz actually dutifully provided this. Now, this was a number of years ago, so just the post has been put up there if you're at all interested. But they made this one notation, being Blizzard. They said, Night Elves and Blood Elves can no longer use the old model. This is working as intended and is not a bug. And that last line is what drew a lot of attention in the forums, because basically Mistwind and another user really got into it over whether or not the change in graphics being done by a toggle is even possible. Do we have the ability, does Blizzard have the ability to actually do this in World of Warcraft? Now, we know it's obviously been done in other games, but this other user that Mistwind got into it with, he was saying, and it was a bit of a troll effort perhaps, because it was a level 1 character on the forums, and they were speaking in sort of a way that made you feel that they perhaps were just trolling. But they were saying, look, I know code, and trust me, Blizzard's code is not advanced enough to be able to pull this off. So it turned into Mistwind arguing that toggling was very much so able to be done by Blizz. And they say this: you're drawing a conclusion from their removal of the toggle that doesn't necessarily follow. Here's what we know. Blizzard removed the Night Elf Blood Elf toggle. Here's what we don't know. why they removed it. In general, Blizzard seems to want Legion to stay more on the cutting edge. Other races didn't have the option to use their old models. Blizzard might have just decided it was time everyone migrated to the new models. Meaning, the removal of the option might have been for something other than technical reasons or confused players. The reason for its removal might have absolutely nothing to do with the toggles don't work thing. There simply aren't enough facts to draw the conclusion from its removal that you're trying to draw. Now, the point Miss Wind is raising there, and sorry, that was a little bit of a convoluted argument, but if you follow my logic, basically Miss Wind's saying, look, they absolutely can do the toggle, despite this troll jumping into the forums going, hey man, I've seen the code, and I know all about it, and they can't do it. Miss Wind's saying, no, trust me, they can do it. Technically, the ability is there. So, the point is, if you can do it, do it. Make it work. And I know that's a bit of a long rabbit hole argument to go into. I can't even almost broach the technical side of things. Some of you guys listening right now, you might be absolute nuts with code. You might be developers. You might know the ins and outs of what goes into a game and the blood, sweat and tears, technically speaking, that's required. And you might actually have some kind of experience with this toggle kind of feature, simply converting graphics or audio on the spot with one click of a button. So, if anyone knows, please do write to the show, feedback@countdowntoclassic.com, and say, hey Josh, here's actually how it all works. You do this, you add that, you subtract this, and boom, voila, updated graphics with the click of a button. I would be interested to know, and I'd read it out on the show. So please do dive in and tell me if Mistwind is quite correct in that Blizzard could quite easily implement this into the game. But we move back to the anti-toggle argument with Mogar again, who says this. I don't think there's a chance they won't have the option for original models and animations. I just don't see a point in putting in a toggle. Simplest way I can put it, I don't want an option for players to toggle off Classic. It kind of misses the point of the project. By the way, do you remember that anniversary tweet that some people think might be from some super early Classic alpha? Let's pretend for a moment that it is. I'd be fine with that. It uses the original models and animations, but enhanced shadows a bit. I mean, who's going to complain about player characters having an actual shadow rather than just a little circle under them? Now, obviously that post is referencing that now famous or infamous tweet that went out recently from Blizz with the anniversary of WoW's release in Europe, that people now say allegedly shows off what could perhaps be alpha footage from World of Warcraft Classic. And what was notable in that footage, as I'm sure a lot of you are quite familiar with by now, was the addition of some changes in the shadowing in the game. Now people notably lost their minds over this and just saying like, whoa, holy shit, we're looking at WoW Classic maybe, and whoa, he's got a little shadow, look at that. And some people were like, you know, changes, no changes, and it just followed on from there. But here's the point. In that footage, if we are very much to accept that that's WoW Classic alpha footage, was the addition of a tiny little shadow crossing the line. What if those shadows were toggleable? How did you feel about that footage? Personally, when I looked at it, I didn't give a shit. And a lot of you be like, oh, you're so part of the changes crowd. You're a dick, Josh. And as I've said before on this podcast, I'm not really changes. I'm not a purist either. I'll take what I'm given, but I just don't give a shit. I just want to play this game, and however Blizzard delivers it to me, I'm going to accept it. I'm not going to not play just because they've changed a shadow. But yes, I lean no changes. I would like the game to be as I remembered it. But as the more and more I read into this stuff, I must admit some of the changes arguments I am giving much more time to. I'm not accepting their arguments per se, but I'm having a really good think about some of the things that are being maturely brought up. And I would like to think that a lot of you are too. Take the time to read some of these forum posts. And obviously you're taking the time to listen to the podcast and hear me deliver some of these points to you. And I do hope that in spite of however rabidly you might feel about being changes or no changes, you're at least considering thoughtfully what the other side has to say. Now, on the point of the shadows, if there was a toggle, let's say, just for shadows, would that be Blizz shitting on your version of Classic if it was just a shadow? I'm not sure how you feel. Tell me right to the show. Let me know. Anyway, with all of that craziness out of the way, and I know you're all, like I said, your blood is boiling, you're freaking out, you might have thrown something around the room by now, we're going to ease out of the news with the third topic into a much cruisier one, a bit more of a fun one for you guys now. And the third topic was a thread that was created in the WoW Classic subreddit this week by user Fluff and Puff Rebirth, and it was titled this: "Were you a good player back in vanilla?" And the post reads as such: "I certainly wasn't. I was total dog shit. I got the game for my 14th birthday in August of 2005, and I made a Night Elf Druid. My suckiness started right from the beginning, as I leveled my first 45 levels without any talents, because I thought WoW worked like Diablo 2, meaning you can't respec. So I avoided putting in any talents until I was sure what was a good spec. After 24 days of slash played, I dinged 60 in May of 2006. I was instantly recruited into an AQ 40 raiding guild, and boy was I bad. I was a total 100% clicker. I had no idea what the fuck downranking was. I had no idea about what gear was good, so I just bid on gear I saw other healers bidding on and just spammed HOTS until I ran out of mana. I was out of mana like 70% of all boss fights, but the guild didn't kick me because I knew how to click Gift of the Wild, Innovate the Priest, and Battle Res when asked to. I got gear really fast since there was only one druid besides me, and that druid was fully geared already. I thought I was a pretty big deal since I was raiding in AQ 40 with full epics. Now I get a chance to experience the game as someone who's not 14 years old, and who doesn't, hopefully, suck as much. That's what excites me the most about Classic. Now, the reason I bring this post to you, everyone, is this is a topic that is near and dear to my heart. So take everything you just heard, but swap out 14-year-old for 22-year-olds who researched everything and still managed to be dog shit, and that was me. I should have known better. I was the quintessential average WoW player. I was lifted up by the fact that I played a so-called easy class in a rogue, and I just couldn't agree with this post more. One of the greatest draws to me for World of Warcraft Classic is being able to come back, do it all again, and try to somewhat vindicate myself as a better player this time around. It's like wanting to have a second go with a girl if you feel like you weren't so great the first time around. Like, can I have another go? I swear I'll be better this time around. So the argument here, the two arguments I should say, are one, well, I was actually pretty handy back in the day, or two, no, I sucked and I'm not ashamed to admit it. So let's go through some of these fun forum posts with the first argument for, actually, I was pretty good. And that comes from user J Morpheus, who says the following: I was a good player. Mechanically, yeah, I sucked. I clicked literally all my spells. I didn't downrank. I had no idea about rotations. I didn't farm flasks or other consumables. I had no idea about best in slot lists, and I just wore what looked cool and so on. But I was friendly, helpful, I knew the boss mechanics, I didn't disconnect halfway through raids, and I didn't stand in the fire. That's what was enough for being a good player back then, and I made it to officer status in my guild and even led some raids. And I really like opening with that point by J Morpheus, because the point is, what does good even mean? Because it might mean different things to different people. Is it skill-based, or is it based on what you brought to the group or guild overall? A can-do attitude and a proactive approach towards World of Warcraft could mean just as much as being a highly skilled player, perhaps to certain people. And I do appreciate this because I think that positivity in the game goes a long way, and particularly back in the vanilla days when, as so many of us realize and so many of us say, no one really knew what the fuck they were doing. We were all learning. This was the wild, wild west of information on Vanilla WoW. Things were still being released. We weren't inundated with a million guides on how to play your class. We didn't have access to all the best in slot guides. There weren't 1,000 videos about that one piece of armor that you're wondering if you should get or not. We are just absolutely loaded with info these days. Back then, not so much. So how did we combat this lack of information? Well, just being the person that says yes. Just having a can-do attitude. Just wanting to help. Sure, I'll go on that dungeon run. Yes, I'll come on that raid. Oh, I'll do a little bit of research on what I can find into how to tackle this boss. And then not being a dick when you do run through the content with other people. Oh, you want me to stop standing in the fire? I guess I can do that. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to be the top of the DPS ranks or the top healer. It's listening to what other people are trying to tell you to do and perhaps taking that on board and then just getting through it as a group. So I really enjoy that whole like, well, what's the definition of good to you? Because quite frankly, I'll take 10 of those players over one amazing player who's a total fucking dick. And with that, we'll move now to the I sucked argument with this post from Garrett Mickley. Actually, it's two posts, sorry. The first from Garrett Mickley, which says this: I've been playing since vanilla and I still suck. So there's that. And the reply from B Marty 7, who said, there's a club. We have t-shirts. Now, the point there is, not only did I suck then, but I suck now. And guess what? We don't necessarily care. The game is fun. Laugh at us all you want, elitist jerks. We perhaps enjoy the game even more than you ever will because we know how to have a good time. Skill does not factor into our enjoyment of the game. And I'm speaking from the heart here, guys, because I was, like I say, a pretty ordinary player. And I enjoyed the game so much that I created a podcast about it, the one you're listening to right now. People who don't give a shit about World of Warcraft don't put in the time for a podcast. And I can tell you, even though I was shit at the game, I still had a wild ride. And look, there is every chance that I'm still going to be pretty shitty at WoW Classic. In fact, if you've been watching me on Twitch, and shout out to the people who have checked in already, you've probably seen that I'm still actually kind of shitty at this game. I don't go through my rotations that well. I take my eye off the ball and sometimes almost get killed by mobs that I absolutely have no business getting killed by. But I don't give a shit because everything that happens, I've got the biggest smile on my face of all time. And that's the point of this game. Have fun. Back to the I was good argument, and we go to user 7 Winters, who's part of the Discord channel. And I should say, everyone, if you haven't joined the Countdown to Classic Discord channel, please jump on the website, find the post that gives you the link to join the channel, and do so, because we have now got quite a few people in this little channel, and it's a great crew. Everyone is super nice. We all chat WoW every day, and I love waking up every morning to all my Discord notifications from all these great guys, and hopefully we'll get some girls in there too. I haven't noticed any yet, but I want you in there, ladies, just chatting all things WoW. And I love that. I love sitting at work and cheating and just sort of writing a little text to someone about WoW. It's freaking awesome. If that sounds like something you'd be interested in, join the Discord channel. Anyway, 7 Winters says the following: I was running a friend from school through Scarlet Monastery in vanilla. Dazzling longsword and epic bind-on equip dropped, and I won it. Now I was going to sell it, but I noticed my friend was using a white weapon, so I said, what the hell, and gave him the sword. He equipped it for the rest of the dungeon. A couple of days later, I ran into him and noticed he was using a white weapon again. I asked him what happened to the sword I gave you, and he said he had vended it and bought this white one because it was better. Now, the reason I bring up this post is it raises this point, and it's more a someone else wasn't so good at the game post as opposed to an I wasn't good at the game post, but it's still relevant for this reason. Were you good enough to know when other people sucked at the game? Did you have enough experience going through the levels in World of Warcraft Vanilla to know when something wasn't quite right? How many facepalms did you go through when you walked through certain major cities? How many facepalms did you go through when you were out in the wild and seeing people acting a little bit funny? Over time, we all started to work things out in Warcraft. It was a learning experience, and we all slowly but surely got there in the end, some faster than others. But I do always love these stories, and that's why we do the Memory Lane segment, which is at the end of this show, and please do hang around for that because it is a bit of fun, about some of the funnier or more memorable stories of your initial walkthrough of World of Warcraft. And I love things like that. Even just the fact that white weapons were in the game almost seemed laughable to me because I was always like, well, why? We work out so quickly that these things are shit. Why do they have them? And I guess it's for players like this. It can be a little bit of a spanner in the works at times. But I do enjoy that we're able at times to somewhat take a step back, have a bit of a laugh at someone else's misfortunes or perhaps misunderstandings of the game and realize that maybe we were all there once. But we go back to the I was good argument with this submission from user Santa Croce, who says the following. I was good, but not because I had any skill or anything, but because I was good at math. I was in college at the time as an actuarial science and economics double major. I was neck deep in calculus my entire college career and thought maybe I should put those skills to good use, so I theory crafted the crap out of everything. The itemization in vanilla was kind of all over the place, but it really allowed you to exploit game mechanics if you got the right pieces and paired them with the right talents. And the point that Santa Croce raises is obviously theory crafting. You could be really good at this game in a way if you crunched the numbers. You had a bit of a head start on getting good, even if you didn't necessarily have the skill, if you understood the basis behind what Blizzard was doing with the game. By sitting down, crunching those numbers, that's kind of over half the game, would you argue, in terms of it obtaining skill in it? If you really knew the theory, and like this user says, they could do the math, so to speak, then the leg up that you had over other users who just might have gone for, oh yeah, I think this stat's pretty good for my class, and yeah, I reckon that one on top of this trinket, that should be pretty cool to combine. But not just going off of a look or a feel, actually having things deeply seated in theory and crunching those damn numbers, one could get really good. And particularly when combined with the skill, God, that would have been a formidable opponent to come across in a battleground. Someone who was A, incredibly skillful at the game, and B, so well versed in the theory crafting that they were fucking wearing all the right equipment and knew how to use it. So that was one way to get really good at the game. But we move back to the I suck camp with user Great White Starks, who says this. I clicked my spells. I only looked at armor for new items. I didn't use talents because noob. I used to ask mages to heal. I sold expensive items to vendors. I rolled need on dungeon items thinking everyone got them. I bought weapons from vendors. First ever Toon still has a white weapon and he's level 24. Yeah, I was pretty good. Now, obviously, the sarcasm meter is going nuts right now, but the point is, what were your biggest face palms? Much like this user has just listed his off, I can tell you what mine was. Now, I seem to remember having a weird infatuation with Spirit back in the day. Now, obviously, as we've touched on in Countdown to Classic in the past, and if you haven't listened to our previous episodes, please do go back and listen because, like I say, if you've enjoyed this one, they're all pretty much like this. So go and get the whole collection and take the time to listen. But as mentioned in a previous show, I told you that Spirit was rife in the World of Warcraft back in the vanilla days, and that's not obviously news to a lot of people, but because it was everywhere and on so many items, I thought that Spirit was super duper important. And I was leveling a rogue, as many of you know, and I was like, yeah man, rogue, Spirit, they seem like they go together. Out of combat HP regen. Yeah, that seems like something I'd be really interested in. Hey man, we're only second to warriors in terms of what Spirit does for us. That's really cool. Sign me up. Pack on the Spirit. So until about level 25, or maybe if I'm telling the truth, level 30 or so, I was always like, oh, that thing's leather, Spirit, give it to me. Love it, love it, love it. And I'm sure a lot of people were scratching their heads going, dude, I don't think that's the stat you're looking for. But I was like, fuck you. What do you know? This is great. That was probably my stupidest thing from back in the vanilla days. But as I say, if you're saying that you had no issues like that when you first played the game, I call you a fucking liar. So come on, fess up, email me your greatest fuck-ups from when you first went through Warcraft at feedback@countdowntoclassic.com. And we go back to the I was actually pretty good argument with user Axros, and they say, I like threads like these because it's basically socially unacceptable to say yes. I grew a lot over the course of vanilla. I started as an Alliance rogue. As I played, I grew intensely curious about the game. I started watching crap tons of PvP videos, discussing stuff on the forums, things like that. At some point, when I'd long reached 60, I realized I was bad. I was undergeared on an older server with friends that I now actively saw as being bad as well. I didn't really like dealing with that. It's easy to start self-loathing when you make such realizations. So, I ended up re-rolling on a fresh server as a Horde mage. I started copying all the stuff I'd seen and read, vowing to make myself a better player. And, well, it worked. I ended up being considered the best mage of the server, and in TBC, I had no problems getting into the gladiator ranks. So, I was bad, but I was also good. A change of perspective and a fresh start gave me a chance to better myself. And that's a great point because that user is saying, I sucked, so I got good. And that is something that should drive, I would like to hope, a lot of us in the game. Well, in any game really, but obviously particularly in World of Warcraft because that's what this podcast is about. The drive and the push and the desire to actually improve one's skill in the game, whether it be in PvP or PvE. Constantly sitting down and asking oneself, how can I help my guild further? How can I achieve higher DPS? How can I be a better healer? Or if you're running battlegrounds all the time, I'm not comfortable with what my performance has been like so far against other players. How can I start to burn down people more efficiently? Are there other tactics that I should be considering that perhaps show that what I've been doing isn't all that great? And now we talk about research, putting the time in outside of the game to get yourself better at it. And I'm really all for this. And that's why, again, why I'm so excited about World of Warcraft Classic is I am going to put in so much time in whatever class I roll. And as I say, I'm still leaning warrior, but it's now up for debate. Priest, shaman, I don't know. Anyway, I'm sure a lot of you are going to be like this in terms of we want to be the best that we can be in Classic. Okay, we had our fun last time. We fucked around. We didn't really know what we were doing. And it all was fine. It was great in the end. But this time, as much fun as we're going to have, it's also sort of going to be like, well, it's kind of business this time. Like, yeah, I'd love to make friends. Yeah, I'd like to fuck around. But if you cross me on a PvP server, I'm gonna know what I'm doing, not like it was last time. And I'm kind of looking forward to that. I'm still gonna suck, but I'd like to think I'll try to be at least a little bit better. 5-10% better? That's what I'm reaching for. Anyway, back to the I suck argument with the final post for this week's Forum and Fauna. And it's from user Solveig, who says the following. I was pretty subpar, but hey, I was 10. I got the game a few months after release, I think in January 2005, and I rolled a dwarf hunter because my friend was playing dwarf and I wanted to be a hunter. I would have rolled a night elf and I really wish I had. Night elf was my favorite race in Warcraft 3 and I really loved the idea of shadow meld and wisp form. Anyways, over my career of vanilla WoW, I never really leveled much because I found the task monotonous and my younger self was not very good at keeping on task. I just wanted to see what the world had to offer and often spent my time wandering around the world looking for little hidden places and seeing things a lot of players probably missed. War walking to Ironforge Airport and glitching into uninstanced Sol Garub were all favourite pastimes and a lot of where I spent my time. In total, I only ever dinged 47 as my maximum level over almost 2 years of playing the game, and I only ever experienced endgame at the time when my friend left the game and donated me his 60 paladin. I immediately went into some level 60 dungeons and got into a bug Zul'Gurub raid. I literally had zero clue on what to do, and I went in meleeing everything, spec'd from memory as a healer with a few prod talents and decked out in mismatched healing and tank gear. I don't recall that run getting all too far, but we got a few bosses and I felt happy with the experience. Overall, I was a 10 out of 10 potato throughout it all, but it was still one of the most memorable times in my gaming life and an experience I wouldn't trade for anything. I'm glad I got to go back and revisit the game on Nost and leveled as a warrior, getting into MC, ZG, Oni, BWL, all that content, and actually experience the game as an adult with an understanding of how everything actually functions. I'm super hyped to experience it again and hopefully see a new wave of players experience something that always brought me so much joy. And this is a positive vibe to go out on for Forum and Fauna this week, everyone. If you think skill or knowledge stopped me from having a good time during World of Warcraft vanilla, then baby, you just don't get vanilla. That's how it worked. We had so much fun, no matter what happened. It was all by the by. And the tales that user just told. And I love that point that, look, and we keep coming back to this on this podcast. Some people were really young when they played WoW Vanilla. Solveig was 10 years old when they played the game. And I don't begrudge them at all for only getting to 47. Yeah, they played the game for over 2 years, but they were 10, 11, 12 years old. Yeah, I think it's great that they even got to 47. They had a great time. That's what it's all about. Skill doesn't get in the way. Knowledge doesn't get in the way. Yes, those can benefit your experience. I absolutely don't fight that. But if you think that you will have a bad time because you're not the best PvPer on your realm, if you're not the best tank on your realm, if you're not the most knowledgeable player in the guild, then that's not exactly how it goes. We all have our own different ways of enjoying the game, and we've all got our various reasons for being super excited to jump back into Classic. I can't wait. And with that, everyone, it's time to move on to anger management. Each episode, Countdown to Classic comes to you with some of the angriest posts that I've found in relation to some of the topics that we've touched on this week. Now, I begin with user Kick Rocks on the WoW Classic official forums, who says this in relation to DKP. So if they wiped 100 times and spent a few weeks on a boss, and you show up the next raiding day and they wipe 10 times and then down the boss, you somehow think that you should have a shot at that loot? You think that's fair? Because I don't know what world you live in, but that's not fair. Not even close. You should have enough respect for your fellow guildmates to pass on that gear willingly and wait for your turn. The next submission comes from user Gilda A9649, who's talking about the issue of toggleable graphics. And they say this: if they're looking to the community for that, then the modern graphics are a 100% no-go. You can see that overwhelming trend every time the topic comes up. There is always someone posting about graphic changes, and the crossover people like yourself are standing on the fence, while the people in favour of modern graphics are unanimously shut down by an extremely large group of people saying everything from simply no to go play a different game if you don't like it. So far, I can't find a single pro graphics thread or pro changes thread that's been successful in this forum. To me, that speaks volumes about the direction the community as a mass wants in Classic. And the next post comes from user Belinta, who says this: if you actually say LFG DM when you want a group for Dire Mall North, you're an idiot. If you actually say LFG DM when you want a group for Dire Mall East, you're an idiot. If you actually say LFG DM when you want a group for Dire Mall West, you're an idiot. If you actually say LFG DM when you want a group for Dead Mines, some people will call you an idiot, yet it'll be completely clear exactly what instance you're actually trying to do, and nobody will be truly confused. The next post comes from user Acison, who says this: oh right, also the tongue-in-cheek part. That Blood Elf lady in Stone Talon Mountains was really core to my vanilla experience. This is true. I'd hate to have her remodeled. Oh geez. Or Sylvanas shaking her boobs at me in a robe occasionally. Really important to preserve that in a video game museum. The next post was on a thread titled Flight Paths, and from user Rivich, who says this: no one is walking and exploring shit. No one gives a shit what you're doing unless you're max level. You're a nobody until then, even if it takes a while to get to max for the casuals. And once you are max, you get a warlock slave that summons everyone to the raids. I don't know what fucking game you're playing. And I like the reply from user Shotglass, who said, stay in Legion, please. It was made for you. Anyway, the final post for this episode's anger management is a back and forth from these two users, beginning with user Suwaya, who says this: keep on proving my point that you're a middle-aged man getting mad over a video game. That's pathetic. Maybe you should take your own advice, getting so pissy on a forum wanting changes and can't handle vanilla WoW. But then again, you're making assumptions yourself. And user Yesa Shaman says this: I'm not pissy. It's hilarious watching angry middle-aged men fight over a video game that came out 14 years ago. And sad. I most certainly have already handled vanilla and am part of the no changes crowd, in case you didn't read that from our earlier conversations. But the elitist crowd is pathetic, and that is a fact. I love forum arguments. They feed me. They're amazing, and that's why we have anger management. But now it's time to move on to winners and losers.
It wasn't going to be easy, but they've won it.
Every Monday, Countdown to Classic brings you some of the more insightful or amusing posts that I spotted through the week in my research for the episodes that I bring you. And I read a lot of posts, everyone. I go through so much forum material, it's ridiculous for these episodes. And along the way, I write down some of the ones that make me go, I like that. And that's why we have winners and losers. So the first submission I bring you was a post on the WoW Classic subreddit from user Snellhest3, who posted the following thread during the week. It was titled, Important Features That Haven't Been Discussed. And they say the following: in the 1.12.1 client, there are no enemy cast bars, no target buff/debuff durations, 20-yard nameplate range, totem stomp macros removed in Wrath of the Lich King API. There are also other things such as weapon swap while casting removed/fixed in Burning Crusade, camera moving around by itself when you're crowd controlled, not sure if just a private server bug, and combo points disappearing when deselecting targets. Which of these should be kept and which changed? Now, I thought that was an interesting argument. And the reason I put that in winners and losers is it just got the old thought process going. And we bring this up a few times on Countdown to Classic, and that is this, that vanilla was a constantly evolving beast. We talk about changes versus no changes, but changes were happening all through vanilla. And even in the 1.12.1 client, which a lot of people are saying is probably going to be what we're going to get when we get Classic, there were some pretty wild things that weren't in the game. That were in the game. And those being things like weapon swapping while casting, and also the camera going crazy when you were CC'd. Now, when we talk changes versus no changes, are there certain changes that you would kind of like to the 1.12.1 client? And then we go down that crazy water slide of changes versus no changes. But anyway, we're not getting into that. I just thought that was an interesting post. The next one is again from the WoW Classic subreddit, from Cole7500, and they say this: I know this might sound implausible, but if WoW Classic proves to be successful, then the retail WoW developers might migrate over to WoW Vanilla's development team instead, thus outweighing the retail WoW's developer team. A similar phenomenon happened at Jagex, where the majority of the developers would dismiss the current RuneScape and work on old school. Unless they have no future plans for vanilla but maintenance, I wouldn't regard this unlikely. Among the retail WoW developers, there's many of them who played the game religiously since its very infancy. Ian Hazakostas, the game director, once played in a hardcore raiding group and provided evidence that Cthulhu was mathematically impossible to beat. I digress, sorry. Anyways, my point is that maybe Classic becomes bigger than we expect. If this is the case, then it inadvertently is detrimental to retail WoW's future development. That's a really interesting post, and a lot of us do sort of try and think about what a successful Classic WoW will do to retail. And we've just sort of been crunching the numbers on what it will do to server size, what it will do to Blizzard's bottom line. But the more important point of this post that we haven't really thought of is, what might it do to the development team alignments? If Classic goes absolutely bananas, will Blizz have to reassess what they're doing with it? And will they reconfigure the development teams? Will someone like Hazakostas, who's the game director of Retail WoW, go, holy shit, Classic is really blowing up. Maybe I'll just duck back over there and take care of that project and leave retail in the hands of someone else who's highly capable. I don't know. Stranger things have happened. Let's see what happens. Anyway, the loser for this week, because when there are winners, there's got to be a loser, but I won't say their name. I'll keep that out of it. The loser was the reply to the following comment that I'm going to read you. Now, this isn't the loser. This is the comment that spawned the loser. So this is a comment from So It's You on the WoW Classic subreddit. And this was in response to a topic about what race should I pick with a certain class. And they said, is WoW your job? If not, roll exactly what you want and don't even consider racials or what people say is or isn't viable for a second. Play what the hell you want and enjoy yourself. Now that's a take that I wholeheartedly agree with. But the loser for this week was the reply that came from someone who got downvoted into holy hell. And they said, here comes the dunce comment winner. in regards to what So It's You said. And that person was essentially shitting on the concept of rolling whatever the fuck you want, because that's what you should be able to do in Warcraft. And of course you can do it, but it should be promoted as well. Now this person is obviously a min-maxing advocate saying, no, if you're going to roll a certain class, then there's a very specific fucking race that goes with that. And if you stray away from that combo, then don't even bother playing the fucking game. To which many of us say, go fuck yourself, good sir. I will do whatever the fuck I want and take your min-maxing and shove it up your ass, because yes, theoretically, I might be 1, 2, 3% less capable in the old stats department than yourself, but guess what? I'm staring at the ass of a character who I love, and it's not a race that I had no interest in playing. I don't know. I'm a big advocate of do what you feel regardless of numbers. And yes, the hardcore guilds will look for, require certain class and race combinations. But guess what? I ain't gonna be no hardcore raider, so it doesn't bother me. Will it bother them? Yes, and if you're that type of player, go for it. Do the right class and race combinations if that's what makes you happy. But if it doesn't make you happy, do what does. Like a lot of us. It's good fun. Try it out. Anyway, with that everyone, it's now time for Memory Lane. Every Monday, I invite the listeners to write into the show. Hit me up at feedback@countdowntoclassic.com and submit some of your funniest or fondest memories from the Vanilla WoW days. And the first email comes from Ali Saunder, who says this. My first 5 classes were Forsaken Warlocks. I enjoyed the class but couldn't stand the succubus, so I would make a new one and start over. In Death Knell, back in the corner, was Scarlet Crusade that were a pain, and I developed a love-hate relationship to this day and ever after. If I needed soul shards for the day, and we did, I would seek out the nearest Scarlet camp to replenish my supply. The souls of the self-righteous were tastier, I'm sure. Thank you very much for that one, Ali Saunder. The next one comes from Twitter user Bruce Activated, who says this. I meleeed as a mage in a dungeon the first time I grouped with a shaman that dropped a Wind Fury totem. 'Cause that's better than my spells, right? I re-rolled as shaman shortly after. The next was an email from listener Let's Go, who says this. Let it be known the struggles of players that barely passed the basic specs to play World of Warcraft back in the day. Those of us who had to play on the minimum settings just to get by. Main cities were a nightmare, and to be avoided if possible. The massive amount of players meant frames per second tanked. I'm talking 1 frame per 10 seconds. I was forced to zoom all the way in, stare straight at the floor, and navigate by the mini-map. I played Alliance, which meant I'd fall into the Ironforge pit or the Stormwind canals all the time. Darnassus was more tolerable, but it was so out of the way, and the auction house there was worthless because no one used it. Linked auction houses did not happen until over a year after release. If main cities were awful, boats and zeppelins were my bane. I dreaded every time I had to step onto one because I knew I was in for a wild ride. I'd park my character right up to the edge, ready to disembark. Once the loading screen popped up showing the travel path across the ocean, I'd keep my fingers crossed. More often than not, the loading screen would finish only to be replaced by another loading screen. The game took so long to load my destination that the boat had already departed and was returning to the place I had just left. This would repeat for several cycles until I was lucky enough to load just in time to move my character out into fatigue waters just before it would zone out again. The few times I tried a horde character, zeppelins always caused me to fall to my death, even over the ocean. The water just never loaded in time. Travel wasn't easy, but I got it done. Thankfully, a year later, I upgraded my PC and my troubles were left behind. That sounded like a horrible experience. I'm surprised you stuck with the game, and I'm glad you did. But I don't know if I could have handled that. That was wild. But the next one comes from listener Tysterix, who says the following. Howdy. I'm here with a tale of janky vanilla mechanics in Molten Core. While my guild had Molten Core on farm for quite a while by this point, it was still ran weekly since the task of gearing up 40 people is never ending. We were progressing smoothly and clearing all bosses easily with no real hiccups until we got to Sulfuron Harbinger, the boss just before Executus and the third last to die. Like most guilds, once something becomes easy, everyone starts joking around and entertaining themselves in whatever way we can. In this case, the main tank was jumping about making the melee DPS chase the boss around. With some choice words in vent, the boss was finally downed. Sideways. On the wall. The boss's movement put him 10 feet up, completely sideways, and no one in the raid could reach him. For about 10 minutes, people tried everything. Looting while jumping, getting the taller night elves to give it a go, wall running. Nothing was working, and we had no idea what the boss had even dropped. Just as we were about to give up and move on, one of our gnome warlocks piped up in vent and said, "Let's give this a try." Walking up to the wall, she used the Orb of Deception to turn into a male Tauren. Lo and behold, the Tauren model was just barely tall enough to reach the boss. She wasn't raid leader, so she couldn't pass out the loot, but we all got to see what was dropped and were able to lay claim to them via bug tickets. I got my Pauldrons of Might the next day in the mail from a GM. This just goes to show that those quote-unquote useless cosmetic items can have an effect on the game as well. And I do like that one. I never would have thought that about the old Orb of Deception. Now, I have to apologize in advance to the next listener whose email I'm going to read, because I am going to absolutely butcher the pronunciation of your first name, sir, and I apologize profusely because you're clearly from either perhaps Norway or Sweden, and we get so many listeners from those two countries in particular, and I thank you so much again. Hooray Norway, hooray Sweden, we love you here at Countdown to Classic. But this listener's name is Gwojon or Gurjon or Gurjun. I am so sorry. Please write me an angry email with the correct pronunciation. But this listener says, "Hi, I really enjoy your podcast. Thank you very much. I started playing WoW right at the start and have been on and off for some years. I am currently playing though. I must say, I agree with you on almost every subject." Well, thank you. Even though I'm a bit of a two-face with all of these subjects, I'm not sure which part of me you're agreeing with, but I'll take it all. Now, they go on to say, "I heard you wanted people to share their most memorable moments, so here's mine. I was, along with my friends, oh how I miss playing WoW with friends, in Arathi Highlands. It was really crowded with both Alliance and Horde players, so we decided to set up an ambush just outside Refuge Point. Since my Orc Warlock was the lowest level, it was decided that I would strip down to my loincloth, sit down on the path, and cry. Meanwhile, my friends hid in a tiny bush by the side of the road, all on the same small spot. It worked perfectly as Alliance scum continuously took the bait and attacked me, only to be annihilated a second later by the Horde hiding in that tiny shrubbery. Our Tauren warrior could barely fit there. It was so much fun. I also loved it when one of them had a tee-hee speech bubble above his head afterwards. That's all. Thank you. And no, thank you for writing in. The final submission comes from user Spanley, who says the following. "Hey Josh, great work on the podcast. Looking forward to every episode. Well, thank you again, Spansley. I want to share one of my most memorable experiences from Vanilla. A young and inexperienced warrior just joined the epic fight in the Alterac Valley to do his duty and fight the mighty horde. With his big bad pauldrons equipped and his gauntlets of valor clenched around his ice-barbed spear, he fought long and fierce. After many hours of fighting, rezzing, capping graveyards, gathering storm crystals, and delivering them to the druids in our base, it was finally time. The druids of the grove signaled that they were ready to start the summoning of Ivus the Forest Lord. The young warrior was excited. Finally, this will be the weight that will tip the scale in our favour. Victory is within reach, and it's all my doing. He followed the druids from their cove in Dunbaldar and escorted them past Stonehearth Bunker and down to the summoning point in the northeast corner of the Fields of Strike. The warrior was sweating. The summoning stone was right there. He pressed it and the summoning ritual started. More and more allies gathered and started clicking, and soon after we only needed one more. Just one more to complete the summon and victory will be secured. Finally, we were 10 players aiding the druids and the summoning ritual started. But the Forsaken Mage arrived. With dark blue and black dress, with a skull on his cap and a red glow around his shoulders, he dismounted his undead horse and froze them all in place with his Frost Nova. He took a few steps back and cast a cone of cold freezing air in the direction of the stunned group. The young warrior was terrified, and he was shocked at how bold the mage was. He was attacking us. It was 1 versus 10. At this point, it started hailing from the sky, and the warrior felt his health fading away. Finally, he reached the mage, and he was about to strike him with his spear when the mage disappeared into thin air, and again the hail from the sky started. His allies fell around him, and the young warrior heard the mage laugh before the world turned black. At the same time, in central Norway, a young boy realized that he had much to learn. Thanks for all the memories, Blizzard. This is one of many. P.S. Josh, here in Norway we have a lot of spare snow. Tell me if you want me to ship you a couple of tons. Spring can't come too fast. From Spansley. And I say thank you, Spansley, for that lovely offer. In Australia, we obviously don't get a boatload of snow. We get some in some parts of the country, but it is sparse, I can tell you that much. But I'm good for now on the old snow front. I might take you up on that shipping option another time. Thank you, but I'll wait on that one. Perhaps when Countdown to Classic hits the big time, then I'll start taking my snow shipments. Anyway, that's almost it, everyone, but just a few shout-outs and show notes from before we go. Now, Belarus Watch continues. You listeners of the show would know that I'm waiting patiently for anyone in Belarus to download the show. We've almost covered the entirety of Europe, and I want it all, everyone. Someone yell at Belarus, hey, wake up, listen to Countdown to Classic. But I want to give a few shout-outs from a few emails that I got through the week that were very nice. Shout-out to Nick from Denmark, who wrote to me the following. Hey, Josh, shout-out from a big fan from Denmark. Absolutely love your podcast, especially the fact that you stay neutral. No changes. In all the topics you talk about, I followed Alex Sensual a bit, but kind of got tired of all his no changes rage. So cheers for that. Keep up the great work. Nick from Denmark. P.S. No changes. Thanks so much for writing in, Nick. I really do appreciate it. And the next one came from someone who we heard from earlier, Ali Saunder, who pointed out a couple of things that I've touched on in previous episodes. And Ali Saunder says that Blizzard said at BlizzCon that half of all accounts never set foot in any raid of any kind during Warlords. So saying everyone raids is a fallacy, and we know the numbers in Classic Warcraft raiding were much lower. Also, I think that arguing that to make every hybrid OP in all roles being a bad thing is irrelevant. Of course it's bad, but allowing druids to be decent at one or the other in a raid, maybe even somewhat good if they work really hard and are better skilled than usual, isn't a bad thing. Not great, just good enough if they work a little harder than a non-hybrid to make it work. And I couldn't agree more with you there, Ali Saunder. They're great points. Ali Saunder also notes that posting 2 shows a week is very ambitious. I'm not sure how long you can keep it up, but if you need to alternate them weekly, I'm okay with that. It's a good podcast. And I say, thank you very much for the kind words, Ali Saunder. I'm not sure how much longer I can keep it up either. But you know what? Damn it, I'm gonna try. So guys, please, if you're happy with the 2 shows a week format, let me know. If you want 1 show a week, let me know. I'm even considering going nuts and giving you 3 shows a week. If that is way too much Countdown to Classic, please write me an angry email and say, Josh, whoa, pump the brakes. We love you, but we don't need you 3 times a week. Now, if I was to do 3 times a week, and I'm only considering it, this would be more of a call-in type episode. I really want to get you guys even more involved in the show, and I want to start taking interviews from well-known players and content creators, but also having people provided the opportunity to call into the show, chat very briefly with me, and give your opinion on a particular topic that you want to raise. And I'd love to start a bit of friendly discourse in getting people from opposing sides of the coin actually voicing their opinions, not just having me read out forum posts, but actually getting 3 people on a phone call and going, well, I respect your opinion, but you're fucking wrong, and here's why. I think something like that might be a bit of fun. If you think that would be interesting, let me know. If you would not listen to that type of show, let me know. I'm playing with things here, guys. We're all growing. The show's a month old on Wednesday, so we're always learning. But the next email again comes from Ali Saunder, who I'd really appreciate the notes that Ali Saunder is sending in, because as I say, everyone, if you take the time to write to me, I will take the time to read out the emails on the show if they're relevant, and a lot of them are. So Ali Saunder says, the reason Nax should be introduced a few months after launch is so that the team can get Classic launched to us earlier and polish/tune Nax afterwards. And reason number 2, because there are gamers that will play Classic solely to rush through the content and blast through Nax to be first and then quit and never play again, which would annoy me and probably a lot of people here to stay for the long haul. EverQuest had Classic servers, and on every single one, raiders came in, blasted through the content and beat the final content in under a week, opening up the next expansion and the next, until a month later the server was the same as all the rest, and Sony had to put out a new Classic server. Classic has finite content. Rushing it is counterintuitive, as MMOs have no end, but Classic will. I think some content will need to be time-gated. Also, please put your email, website and other contact info in the show notes to make it easier to write into you. And I say I will absolutely do that, Ali Saunder. That's a fantastic suggestion. But your answer was obviously, listeners, if you're not aware, in a previous episode, I posited one of the stupidest questions that I have asked on the show. And as I say, every episode, I'm allowed one stupid question because you're the experts and I'm not. I asked the question, why not just have Nax available at the release of Classic? What would be wrong with that? I have now come to see the error of my ways, as a few listeners very, very politely wrote into me and said, Josh, we love you, but you're an idiot and here's why. Nax should absolutely not be available at launch for these reasons, and some of them are what Ali Saunder just mentioned. So again, thank you so much to everyone who writes in. And with that, I just want to end with a few special thank yous for this episode, and those go out to the users Asmo, Figgles, Caffeine PRN, and Here Be Dragons on Reddit, as well as all the wonderful people on the Countdown to Classic Discord channel for your feedback about the podcast through the week, which is helping this podcast get even better as we go along. The next episode, as I said, will be the 1 month anniversary of the show, and this was a very ambitious project when I started, and I really wasn't sure what I was getting into when I started, but I'm loving learning and growing with the help of the Countdown to Classic listeners and this mini community that we're growing here. I need like a name for you all, the counties or the classicals or the clanatics or something like that. That actually sounds like an STD, so maybe we won't go with clanatics. But thank you so much for everyone for listening. I can't wait to see you all the next episode. And again, please jump on the Discord channel. It's a really good community. Thank you to everyone who takes the time to write to me. Everyone has had such kind words, and I hope that everyone is satisfied with the fact that I will try to read out as much content as you send me. But as the show grows in popularity, I am getting more and more emails now. I do apologize if I don't get to all of them, but keep hitting me up and I promise I will get to you at some point. Thank you so much to you, the listeners, for helping this show grow and grow and grow. And the numbers are only getting bigger by the week, by the thousands. Thank you so much, everyone. Until next time, I hope you've all had a wonderful experience through this show. I can't wait to see you again. Cheers.